Everyone in town feared the abandoned barn on the hill, but the day a wild Mustang walked out of it, something changed forever because what it revealed inside wasn't just shocking, it was heartbreaking. The town sat quietly between open fields and low hills, the kind of place where everyone knew each other and nothing ever seemed to change. But there was one place no one talked about unless they had to. At the edge of the town, on a small rise, stood an old wooden barn. Its paint had long faded, and its doors hung unevenly, moving slightly whenever the wind passed through. Even in daylight, it felt wrong. People called it the Haunted Barn. No one could say exactly when that name began, but it had been there for as long as anyone could remember. Children were told never to go near it. If a ball rolled too close, they left it behind. If a dare was made, it ended at the fence. No one crossed that line. Some said they heard strange sounds at night. Soft thuds, like something moving inside. Others spoke of shadows that did not belong to anything real. A few claimed they had seen the doors open on their own, then slowly close again. Over time, the stories grew, and fear settled deep into the hearts of the people. Even the animals seemed to avoid the place. Horses would pull back on their reins if led too close. Dogs would stop and whine, refusing to go any farther. It was as if something unseen pushed everything away. So the barn stood alone, quiet and untouched. No one went near it. No one wanted to know what was inside. And in that silence, the fear only grew stronger. Long before the town grew into what it was, the barn had been full of life. It belonged to a man named Elias Carter, a quiet farmer who was known for his hard work and his deep love for animals. People said he treated his horses like family, speaking to them in a soft voice and never raising a hand in anger. His barn was once the busiest place around, filled with the sounds of hooves, hay, and calm, steady life. But that changed many years ago. One cold season, something went wrong. No one knew the full truth, only pieces of what had happened. Some said a fire broke out late at night. Others believed it was not an accident at all. A few whispered that Elias had been struggling, that he had lost too much and could not carry the weight anymore. Whatever the truth was, the night left a mark that never faded. By morning, the barn was still standing, but something about it had changed. The doors were found open, the inside dark and silent. Elias Carter was gone. Some of the animals had escaped, but others were never found. No clear answer was ever given, and no one searched too deeply. It was easier for the town to move on than to face what might be hidden inside. As the years passed, the story turned into something else. People began to say that the barn held onto that night, that it remembered. They claimed that on quiet evenings, you could hear faint sounds drifting from within, like distant movement or soft cries carried by the wind. Some believed it was the spirit of Elias, still walking the place he once cared for. Others thought it was the animals, trapped in a moment that never ended. The truth became lost in the telling. Each person added something new, and the fear grew stronger with every passing year. No one tried to fix the barn or tear it down. It was left as it was, standing as a reminder of something no one fully understood. And so, the legend stayed alive, passed from one voice to another, until it no longer mattered what really happened. What mattered was that everyone believed the same thing. The barn was not just empty. It was not at peace. It started with a rumor, soft at first, then spreading through the town like a quiet storm. A wild horse had appeared near the outskirts, just beyond the fields that led up to the haunted barn. No one had seen it before, and yet it seemed to know exactly where it was going. People called it a Mustang, though it carried itself with a grace that felt almost unnatural, like it belonged to another world entirely. Its coat shone under the sun, black as midnight with streaks of white along its legs. The townspeople watched it from a distance, unsure what to make of it. Some whispered that the Mustang was drawn to the barn, returning to the same spot every evening as the sun began to dip behind the hills. Others said it seemed almost hesitant, pausing at the fence as if sensing the fear that hung heavy in the air. Even the animals reacted to its presence. Dogs would stop barking, and the horses in the stables would quiet themselves, ears alert and eyes fixed on the newcomer. It moved with a calm authority, slow and deliberate, as if it understood things that the humans around it could not. No one dared approach at first. The barn had been untouched for decades, and now this creature, wild yet strangely familiar, was choosing it as its path. People began to wonder, was it simply a lost horse searching for shelter, or was there something more at work? The Mustang became a figure of fascination. Some children dared each other to get closer, only to run back scared, claiming it had watched them with eyes too knowing for an ordinary horse. And yet, there was something about it that stirred curiosity as much as fear. Every evening, without fail, the Mustang returned to the edge of the barn, leaving the town restless with questions. What was it searching for? Why did it seem so connected to a place everyone else avoided? The barn had kept its secrets for years, but now, somehow, they were coming closer to being revealed. Among the people watching the Mustang, there was one who felt something different. Unlike the others, they did not feel only fear. Instead, there was a pull, a quiet curiosity that would not be ignored. It started with small glances from a distance, noticing the way the horse moved, the way it paused at the barn doors as if listening to something no one else could hear. The main character, a young woman named Clara, had always been drawn to animals in a way most people did not understand. She had grown up helping her father on the farm, learning to read the quiet signs of a horse's mood or a dog's unease. So when she saw the Mustang standing at the edge of the field, tail swishing, ears pricked, she did not feel the usual fear. She felt a question forming inside her. Why here? Why this place? Each evening, Clara returned to watch from a safe distance. She began to notice patterns. The Mustang appeared at the same time, moving toward the barn with a steady calm. Sometimes it pawed the ground as if impatient. Other times it stood still, listening to the wind. Clara's curiosity grew stronger than her fear. She wondered what had drawn the horse to this place no human dared enter. She tried asking the townspeople, but they only shook their heads. "Stay away," they warned, "or you'll regret it." Their fear only made Clara more determined. She felt certain that the horse was trying to show something, and she wanted to understand. As the days passed, her fascination deepened. She imagined the barn not as a place of evil, but as a secret waiting to be discovered. And each evening, as the Mustang disappeared behind the fence, she promised herself she would follow it one day. Something inside her whispered that whatever lay hidden, it was worth the risk. The night Clara decided to follow the Mustang was quiet, the kind of night where even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The town slept, and the fields were dark and still, broken only by the faint glimmer of the moon. Her heart raced, but it was not fear that drove her. It was a sense of purpose, a feeling that tonight she would finally understand what the horse had been trying to show her. She packed a small bag with a lantern, some water, and a blanket. Every step toward the barn made her stomach tighten, but she forced herself forward. She had ignored the warnings from neighbors, the fearful whispers about the haunted barn, and the stories that had grown over decades. Tonight, she was determined to see the truth with her own eyes. The Mustang appeared as always, waiting at the edge of the field. Its dark coat glimmered under the moonlight, and its eyes seemed to watch Clara approach. It did not flee, nor did it make a sound. It simply waited, patient, as if it had been expecting her. For a moment, Clara hesitated, staring at the barn looming ahead, its weathered boards casting long shadows across the field. She felt a chill run down her spine, but then she looked back at the horse. Something in its steady presence calmed her, giving her the courage to take the next step. And so she followed. She kept close, careful not to startle it, moving silently through the tall grass. Every creak of the barn, every rustle of leaves, made her pulse quicken, but the Mustang moved steadily, unafraid, guiding her forward. As they reached the barn doors, Clara took a deep breath. Fear and curiosity battled inside her, but curiosity won. She knew that once she stepped inside, nothing would be the same again. Tonight, she would uncover the secret the town had avoided for so long. Clara's hand trembled as she pushed the barn door open. The wood groaned under the weight of years, and a cold, musty air rushed out to meet her. The lantern cast a small circle of light, barely enough to cut through the darkness, but it was enough to see the worn beams and scattered hay. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars, and the silence was so deep it pressed against her ears. The Mustang stepped inside first, its hooves making soft thuds against the wooden floor. It moved with calm confidence, glancing back at Clara as if to tell her it was safe. She followed slowly, each step measured, afraid to make a sound that might shatter the quiet. Shadows twisted across the walls, creating shapes that made her heart pound faster. As she walked further, Clara realized the barn was larger than she had imagined. Old stalls lined the sides, their wooden doors hanging open, some broken. Ropes and harnesses hung from hooks, swaying slightly as if moved by an invisible hand. The air smelled of hay, dust, and something faintly metallic. She could feel the weight of years of loneliness pressing down on her. The Mustang stopped near the far corner and turned its head toward a pile of old, forgotten objects. Clara's lantern light fell on something she had not expected: a small, worn blanket, and beside it, faint signs of life. She froze, unsure if she was seeing what she thought. The horse stamped its hooves gently, nudging her forward. Clara realized in that moment that the barn's fearsome reputation had hidden something else entirely. It was not evil that lingered here. It was waiting for someone brave enough to see the truth. And as the Mustang stood beside her, calm and watchful, Clara felt a strange mix of fear and hope, knowing that what she was about to discover would change everything. Clara stepped closer, her lantern trembling in her hands. In the corner, partially hidden beneath the old blanket, she saw small, frightened eyes blinking up at her. A litter of tiny, weak foals huddled together, shivering and scared. Their mother was nowhere to be seen. The Mustang lowered its head, nudging Clara gently toward them, as if urging her to help. Her heart tightened. She had expected something strange, perhaps eerie, but not this. These creatures had been trapped here, forgotten, their lives left hanging in the cold darkness of the barn. The realization hit her: the barn had not been haunted by ghosts, but by neglect, sorrow, and the consequences of human carelessness. Clara knelt down, whispering softly to the foals, her voice shaking. The smallest one trembled at first, but slowly relaxed as she offered comfort. The Mustang remained close, its presence steady and protective, watching her every move. It became clear that this was the horse that had led her here not by accident, but on purpose. Her mind raced with questions. Who had left them here? How long had they survived in the dark? The answers did not matter as much as what she had to do now. She wrapped the foals carefully in the blanket, her hands gentle but firm. The Mustang nickered softly, as if giving approval. Clara felt a wave of emotion wash over her: sorrow for the lives nearly lost, gratitude for the horse that had guided her, and hope that she could finally make a difference. The haunted barn, feared for so long, had revealed a painful truth, but it was a truth that could now be changed. For the first time in years, the barn seemed to breathe with life instead of fear. And Clara knew that the Mustang's mission was complete. It had shown her the secret it had guarded, trusting her to do what humans had long failed to do. Clara sat on the cold floor, holding the foals close, as the Mustang stood quietly beside her. The fear that had gripped the barn for decades seemed to melt away, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. She realized the stories of ghosts and shadows had only been echoes of pain and neglect. The barn had never been haunted by spirits, it had been haunted by what humans had left behind. Tears filled her eyes as she thought about the lives that had suffered quietly, unseen for so long. The townspeople had avoided the barn out of fear, never stopping to wonder if something could be saved. And yet, here she was, guided by a creature whose wisdom far exceeded human understanding. The realization struck her sharply: fear often hides the truth. People cling to legends because it is easier than facing reality. But the Mustang had shown her something powerful: compassion, courage, and the importance of acting when it matters most. Clara felt a swell of determination. She could not let these lives be forgotten. The barn's story would not end in sorrow this time. She would carry the truth back to the town and give it the care and attention it deserved. And somehow, she knew the Mustang would watch over her until she did. Clara stepped out of the barn into the soft glow of early morning, the foals safely wrapped in her blanket. The Mustang followed her to the edge of the field, its dark eyes calm and knowing, as if it understood that its part of the story was done. She looked back at the barn one last time. It was no longer just a place of fear. It was a place of life waiting to be saved. She carried the foals to the town, moving carefully but quickly. The streets were quiet, and the first few people she passed stared in surprise at the small, shivering creatures she held. When she told them the story of the Mustang, the hidden foals, and the truth behind the barn, they listened in silence. The fear that had held the town captive for decades began to lift, replaced by awe and a touch of shame. The townspeople joined her without hesitation. They brought water, hay, and warmth, tending to the foals and preparing the barn for the ones they could save. Some stayed to clean and repair, finally facing the place they had avoided for so long. Others simply watched, quiet and thoughtful, realizing how easy it is to let fear shape their choices. Clara stayed by the Mustang's side as it nickered softly, watching the transformation. The barn, once feared, was alive with hope and purpose. The foals, once abandoned, were safe and cared for. And the town, once trapped in stories of ghosts, began to understand the importance of compassion and courage. When the work was done, the Mustang turned and disappeared quietly into the fields, leaving Clara with a deep sense of gratitude. The barn's story had changed, and so had the town. Fear no longer ruled here. Instead, there was life, hope, and the understanding that some secrets are meant to be revealed. Clara stood at the edge of the barn, watching the sunrise paint the fields in gold. The fear that had held the town for decades was gone, replaced by understanding. She realized that what people call haunted is often just pain and neglect hiding in silence. The barn had been waiting not for ghosts, but for someone willing to see the truth and act. The Mustang's guidance had been more than chance. It was a reminder that courage and compassion can reach places fear cannot. Clara knew that the story of the barn would stay with the town, a lesson that fear should never keep them from doing what is right. And as she walked back toward the people, full safe in her care, she understood that some secrets, when revealed, can heal not just those trapped in the dark, but everyone willing to face the truth.